is, whew, I just hit the record button.
All righty.
Today's council meeting was such a barn burner, my computer blew out. So it's taken a little while for it to whip itself back into shape.
Cool.
But I think we are okay now. So,
Good.
as I said, I hit the record. Let's start with, please introduce yourself and what it is you want to do for the city.
Well, okay. First off, it's the fire district, but
Oh, I bet.
you've been doing a lot of city. Anyway, I'm Joe Young. I am currently a director for the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. I was elected 2 years ago when they went to an elected board by default, since nobody ran but the people that were already on the board. From a personal standpoint, I am retired. I used to be, well, I still am a civil engineer. I worked for East Bay Municipal Utility District, the water district that serves a large part of the Bay Area, for about half my career. And then I was in the power industry with Bechtel Corporation and Impel Corporation and other public sector, private sector companies for the other half of my career. I moved to Brentwood 12 years ago with my wife, and we've been very happy here. Shortly after the failure of Measure S that the fire district had out, I said, gee, I bet I can help the fire district. I ran a big seismic improvement program for the water district, where we went out to all our customers and got a lot of additional funding to improve the water system. Thought it would be easy to help the fire district. Turns out it's not as easy as I thought it would be. I've been working on it for a long time, but I think we're making some real progress right now.
Great. And I was typing some things down, and this is going to be in no particular order. As I said in the beginning, what do you want to do for the city? And you corrected me. I think a lot of folks like me didn't know there's a difference.
Yes.
And so yeah, could you explain what that difference is? Two-part question. And how we as citizens of Brentwood are either excelling or needs improvement on assisting the district.
Okay, so in Contra Costa County, there are 9 fire districts. Some of them are run by the city. Some of them are that they serve. Some are run by a county. And some of them are special districts, which the state allows a special district to form and provide a service in a particular service area. So back in 2002, the county supervisors basically went to LAFCO, which is the Local Area Formation Commission, and petitioned to create East Contra Costa Fire Protection District by combining a number of little fire districts that were largely volunteer type organizations. And so our district now covers 250 square miles, and it serves the city of Brentwood, the city of Oakley, and then Discovery Bay, Knights and Bethel Island, and Byron, and what we call the Marsh Creek Morgan Territory, which is going out Marsh Creek Road to Clayton. And the county created this district to serve that area. So when there's a district that provides fire service, then the cities don't do that. In other words, it's not a city responsibility anymore. It's a responsibility of the district.
Okay.
And so we have a district that spans a number of cities and some county area, and its job is to serve all of those people in that area. I don't know if that helps.
Oh no, it's fascinating. And as you're speaking, I'm typing down more stuff because it's raising more questions. Since the county determined what the geographics are, and
Right.
I guess the cities that it incorporated, why shouldn't our fire district matters and therefore resolutions come from the county?
Well, it started that way. In 2002, the county supervisors served as the board of directors for the fire district. And then over time, there was probably some friction, as I understand it. It was before my time. I didn't come here until 2012. And there was a push to have a separate board of directors for the fire district. So they did create a separate board of directors, but they were not elected, they were appointed. And so the city of Oakley appointed 3, the city of Brentwood appointed 4, and the county appointed 2. So we had a 9-member board. And it was an appointed type board rather than an elected board. It took some actions to try and improve the situation, but to really be honest, as volunteer appointees, we didn't really seem to have the same power and influence that elected officials would have. And it was more difficult. We did take a couple of measures to the electorate in our district as far as funding, but we really weren't getting the message out as well as it could be. And some of the funding mechanisms were kind of convoluted. So one of the goals that had been identified was to come up with an elected board, and that did happen starting in 2019. The 2018 election included an election for fire district members. And all 5 of the existing, well, the fire district was reduced from 9 to 5 members, as most boards are. And the election resulted in 5 members, all of whom had already been in a volunteer capacity with the fire district, but now were elected officials. And we began to, I think, take a little more forceful action after that. It was also coupled with the hiring of the new fire chief when the previous fire chief retired. And we've since that time, I think, moved forward more aggressively in trying to solve the problems. And we have a pretty good program in place right now that I think can get us there, but it's still got a ways to go.
This is fascinating. Every time you answer my question, I start typing because there are so many things that at once make sense and then makes it more confusing. So let's go down the rabbit hole just a little bit further. And again, now this is yet another 2-part question. The county may have set up the geographics of the territory, and the cities of Oakley and Brentwood may have decided to have their 2 separate entities. Let me rephrase the question of the county, which is, maybe saying it in a different way. Why shouldn't the county fund the things for the districts that they created themselves? Then the second part. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
yeah.
Please.
Okay. Let's tackle that one first.
Okay.
Back in 1978, Proposition 13 passed. Okay, and I voted for it.
I did.
I thought it was good to set up a limitation on funding. And that basically reduced property tax revenue almost 50%. It was a huge reduction. And all the counties throughout the state had to address that. And they basically, in the end, decided that they would allocate the remaining property tax dollars to the various agencies that were providing services in proportion to the dollars they were getting before. So they said, we've had a cut in funding. It's very difficult to figure out who to give what. So we're going to say, if you got $100,000 before, it's been cut in half, you're going to get $50,000 now. So when that was done, all of the little fire districts out here got some property tax revenue. And traditionally, that's the way a fire district is funded. It's funded through property taxes. And they provided what I call rural fire service, because that's what was needed out here. In 1978, Brentwood had 7,500 people. That was the population of Brentwood. Population of the entire area was probably about 10,000. So all that was needed was rural fire service, you know, because it was a rural area.
Right.
And volunteerism kind of helped with that, and they continued along for a long time that way. One of the things that Proposition 13 did not do is it did not provide a funding mechanism for new services. In other words, it said, here's the funds you get, and we went and funded the services that existed at the time. So there was no mechanism for new services. New services would have to be provided by additional funding approved by the voters. And this is where the 2/3 rule came in to be. So, and that's always been a little mixed up in my mind. You need a 2/3 vote to pass a specific tax, but only a 50% vote to pass a general tax. Seems to me it ought to be the other way around, but be what it is, that's what it is. So now there's been a lot of growth out here, okay? And the fire districts have been consolidated for efficiency. All those little volunteer districts were put together. And the district today provides rural fire service. If you go and look at the response times in the city of Brentwood, they correspond to rural fire service. They're on the order of 11.5 minutes. And that's sort of what rural service is supposed to be. But the people here would like to have urban service. We would like to have 7.5 minute response, because there's a lot of us, we have a lot of medical issues, we want better response, okay? Well, that's a new service. That's going from a rural service to an urban service. Okay, there's no money for that in the tax structure today. So it has to be funded with new money, so to speak. So where's that money going to come from? You know, and in reality, I think the only place it's going to come from is the people that are getting the service. I mean, we're looking at ways to fund it. We've tried a number of things, including grants. We've tried a couple of little tax measures. The county doesn't have the money. The city doesn't have the money. When the fire money was distributed by Prop 13, it wasn't given to the county. It wasn't given to the city. It was given to these little fire districts out here. When they were put together, they still have our mother fire district or child fire district from those that were consolidated, still has all the money that those districts got out of Prop 13, but it's money suitable for rural fire service. It's not money that will support urban fire service. Okay, and so to support that urban service, there has to be another source of revenue.
Okay, and that makes sense. It actually delves into, I have yet another two-part question, which may not be in your wheelhouse. But before I get down that particular rabbit hole, how does Knightson, Byron, the cities that don't seem to have a setup like we do and like Oakley does?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me preface this before I get to the question. I spoke with someone and he was speaking to his kid about fire response time. Pretty smart kid, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But he demonstrated because a fire truck was flying down to Knightson.
Yeah.
And he had just come from Knightson, getting to Brentwood proper. And he asked his child, how long did it take to get here from Knightson to here? It took about a half hour. Well, that's how long the fire truck's going to take to get from here to Knightson. So how do the cities that don't have the setup that we have and Oakley has, how are their issues raised? I mean, how can they get a fair deal? I'm not saying, I'm saying just from a citizen that doesn't know anything, doesn't seem like it's a fair deal.
Well, you have to go back to the types of service, okay? And when you have a fire station, roughly $4 million a year to operate. Okay, so if you take an area like Bethel Island and you say, gee, we ought to put a fire station in Bethel Island to serve those people. Well, that property in that area cannot generate $4 million in revenue. So what happens is you have to spread out the amount of area that's served. So that's where you get the difference between a rural area and a suburban area. Okay, and the national standards for response time for rural areas are about 11.5 minutes. And for suburban areas, they're 7.5 minutes. And the difference is because the population is more dense, it can support more fire stations within that area, and so the travel time is less. Okay, so now when Knightson sits there and says, gee, it's taken 11 minutes to get fire service out here, that's not necessarily bad. That's kind of consistent with the type of area it is. In fact, if you look at my town hall, I had a picture up there that shows the population densities in the district, and they're different in different areas. So when you go into a high population density area, there's going to be more fire stations because that area can support more fire stations. Okay, and so yes, it would be great if everybody in the United States had 7.5 minute service. But when you have houses that are a mile or two apart and there's only a few people here and only a few people there, there's two things that are happening. One, the risk of fire is less because people are what cause the fires because they're not as many and not as dense, but the ability to support fire service is also less, and so it's going to take a little longer. For our fire district, it operates as a system. We have 3 fire stations right now to serve the entire district. There's one in Brentwood, one in Oakley, and one near Discovery Bay. And they work as a system. They work together. You know, if the station in Brentwood is busy and someone makes a call from Brentwood, the Discovery Bay station will come in. Their engine will come in to try and serve it unless they're serving somebody in Discovery Bay at the time. So it's a system, and the engines are all covering the system, and we try to send the closest engine that's available to the particular incident that needs help. And sometimes, you know, if we need 6 stations right now to meet basically the industry standards. Okay, with 6 stations, we'll be able to do 7.5 minute service in Brentwood, and we'll be able to do 11 or better in Oakley and not Oakley, Knightson and Bethel Island and those places. So we'll be able to provide urban level service in urban areas and rural level service in rural areas. So everybody will get a better deal. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the goal. I don't know if that helps.
No, you answered the questions. As a matter of fact, this is what I love about this particular interview is every time you answer the question, I wind up with 3 more. So
we may never get done.
No, but this is where I profess ignorance about all of this. Just as a mention, this may be very well outside your wheelhouse. When you mentioned $4 million a year to maintain a firehouse, well, a catastrophic fire is going to cost far more than $4 million. Now, is it going to be covered by the city, covered by their insurance plans or whatever? But at the end of the day, one will sit and think, well, shouldn't we be proactive instead of reactive? Shouldn't we have the 6 fire stations instead of the 3? And now, I don't know why, because when someone says, I'm not saying you, but it sounds like it's recognized that we need at least up to 6 fire stations. Well, I need to lose weight, and needing and doing are 2 totally different things. So I'm trying to understand the gap between needing up to 6 firehouses and actually doing 6 firehouses. But like I said, that's just
Mhm.
commentary,
Yeah.
and I'll leave that alone. But it does roll into uh, question that I have about why can't we have a bond measure? For some people, maybe that is a tax, but why can't we have a bond measure that can cover this shortfall?
Well, okay, just for nomenclature, bonds are generally used to finance one-time expenses like capital, building a fire station, for instance. Okay, they're not generally used to finance ongoing operations like operating the fire station. Okay, but we could have, and we have proposed in the past, uh, we went out with what was called a benefit assessment, and we can get into some detail on that. And it was going to be to do one fire station. And to do that, the various properties around the district would have had to pay somewhere between $50 and say $150 a year extra. Okay. But it didn't pass. It came close, but it didn't quite make it. And part of it is education, and part of it is, well, it didn't solve the whole problem. You know, there were a lot of things. So we've been trying to get the message out. The fire chief has done a lot of town halls. We've been sending out flyers and things. So we're trying to increase the knowledge, and we will go out with another funding measure as soon as the dust settles from this election.
Okay. Okay.
But
No, and
one of
that,
the things we had planned to do that, well, let me give you some background.
sure.
We have a program, our board, the ones we have right now, we've put together a program right now to address the district's problems. And it's sort of a 3-stage program. First stage is to make sure that new growth, new people coming in, support the cost of building the new fire stations that are needed to support them. Okay. And right now we have 3 stations in service. We need 3 more right now. And as we reach our 2040 grow up build out period, we'll need 3 additional stations. So we need 9 total in 2040. We need 6 right now, and we have 3. Okay. So part of our effort is to address what I call stations 7, 8, and 9 that are needed for the growth that isn't here yet. Okay. And we have instituted a new impact fee to cover the capital cost of those 3 stations, so that all new development as it comes in, we are hoping will be assessed with that impact fee. Now, this is a thing that's really very strange about the way our laws are set up. The fire district has the responsibility to provide fire service, but the cities and the county have the power to require payment for that service. Okay. So the impact fee that we want to charge new development has to be driven by the cities and the county. They have to say to the developer, you're going to have to pay this impact fee.
Uh-huh.
So it's a little convoluted, and I'm going to be talking about that later tonight at the fire board meeting.
Oh, we're probably going to talk about it in the next question.
Yeah, but at any rate, we have done the study on what the impact fee needs to be. And we're asking the 2 cities in the county to adopt that fee and require new development to pay it. Brentwood has done that. We believe the county will adopt that at their November 3rd meeting. We've been talking with them. The city of Oakley has been dragging their feet. You've probably heard the stink going on the last few days, and I won't get into that right now. But we have a fee that we have developed that is necessary to fund the building of stations 7, 8, and 9. Okay. And the city of Brentwood has adopted it, and they're applying it to new construction. We believe the city will adopt it on November 3rd and apply it to new construction. And we hope in negotiating and working with Oakley, we'll be able to convince them to adopt it and apply it to new construction. If that happens, stations 7, 8, and 9 are taken care of. We're going to be able to build them. We're going to be able to put fire engines in them. They're going to be there ready for a firefighter to show up. Okay, but that impact fee won't pay for the firefighter. So there's another type of fee structure called a community facilities district. And we are in the process of forming a community facilities district to cover the entire district. And any new development will have to enter into that CFD, community facility district, and pay what, for the, call it what it is, pay a fire tax for fire service, okay? And City of Brentwood's on board with that. We haven't quite worked out what that fee is going to be, but they are telling development, and we're negotiating with their developers right now on them joining that community facility district. The City of Brentwood requires it. When you come in with a new development, they say, you got to join this CFD. You got to agree to pay whatever it is when you pull your building permit. City of Brentwood says, I'm on it. I'm good. We're expecting that we'll work the same deal with the county and Oakley. Okay. If that falls into place, and you know, we're like halfway there because the City of Brentwood is half of the effort. We have got the firefighters covered to go into stations 7, 8, and 9. So we're almost ready to take care of 7, 8, and 9 for the growth. But we've got this problem for what I call stations 4, 5, and 6, the ones we need right now. We legally cannot go to new development and say, you got to pay for station 4, 5, and 6. We can't do that. What should have happened is really back in 2002 when the district was formed and there was very few people here, the county should have said, we're going to create this community facility district and require all new development to join it and pay a fire tax. Okay, so when they built my house back in 2008, I would have had to pay that fire tax. Okay, and it might have been a couple $100. Okay, maybe 300, I don't know. But I don't have to pay that fire tax because the county didn't require it. Okay, and then the city, nobody required it, it didn't happen. So that's what we're talking about right now, is some kind of a funding measure to put firefighters into stations 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and we've got station 4 almost built. We're working with the City of Brentwood right now on station 5, and they have most of the money to build that, and we're probably going to have to come up with a little bit. We haven't quite figured out the funding to build station 6 yet, but we'll get there.
Okay.
But
oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
So now the next thing is going to be some kind of revenue measure that'll fund and put firefighters in stations 4, 5, and 6. And we were going to try and have that measure out to the people in May, but COVID kind of popped up and stopped us. Then the election came along, and that will probably be a mail-out ballot, separate, okay? And they got Measure X on there, and they got Prop 15 on there, and they got a bunch of things on there, and there are some of them are talking about fire, and some of them are talking about this. So after November 3rd, and we see how the dust settles, we'll be able to structure the revenue measure we need. And maybe it won't be as big, like if Measure X passes, which is a sales tax, and the county says, hey, we're going to dedicate a certain amount of this to the fire district, then we won't need as big a revenue measure. So we're waiting to see what happens, but we will be going out with a revenue measure of some kind. And when I say, you know, the people here have to pay the services, well, if the sales tax passes, we're going to pay into that sales tax, right? You know, we go down here to the grocery store and, well, they don't put it on food, but you go out to the streets of Brentwood and buy yourself a new pair of pants or something like that, you're going to pay a sales tax, and part of that money is going to come back to the district if the county says they'll give it back to us. And so depending on whether it passes, and how much the county is willing to allocate to us. And it's totally up to the county as to how much they allocate where. There are no constraints on the spending of that money. We will be able to figure out what kind of measure we need. And then
Okay.
that will take care of staffing stations 4, 5, and 6.
Okay. Now, and this isn't going to be a question, but I had to type down if the county. It's wow. We're asking to pass a measure that the county still controls. You know, who gets what. Okay. So you may have noticed I made a face when you had said developers can't. Okay.
Yes.
Now, if you've seen any of my posts on Nextdoor, I am asking everyone from this point on, whether it's within your wheelhouse or not, why can't we, because we all agree there's an imminent fire danger in this town, okay? Oakley can do their thing and all that other stuff, but in Brentwood, it is an imminent fire danger. If we're having longer response times than we should, that all by itself should indicate it's an imminent fire danger. I propose that an executive action, and I don't know who the executives are, that's the question, but an executive action stopping all development right now. No more hammer, no more nail. You know, yeah, when you talk about Bridal Gate and the whole 15 years that it's been sitting and languishing, and I have no opinion on that one way or the other, but that is an example of the downside of Prop 13, that people who have had property, you know, forever and a day, they can wait it out and then boom and not pay anything. Whereas my suggestion of an emergency proclamation stopping it until everybody involved gets to the table and reconciles this. Because I honestly don't think it's fair for new development, and I'm not endorsing anybody, but I don't think it's fair for new developers to have to carry the burden of the same type of effort that a existing, you know, or existing contracts. And this is more of a rant than a question, but that is my big issue, is that no one has told me yet why we can't have an executive action other than the spine to do it. I know we talk about lawsuits and we talk about this and that, but you know, if my house burns to the ground because of the city's ineptitude, I'm telling you, I'm going to put it on tape. I'm suing all of you guys. Every single person that's been on the seat, if they come back or not, I'm suing every one of you if my house burns to the ground because of your ineptitude. And I think what some people don't realize, and maybe you can expound on this, that fire district is not just fire. It's grandma having a heart attack. It's that bad accident out on Highway 4. It is, you know, it's so many things other than fire. And I don't know why we don't focus on that as well, because someone may say, my house isn't going to burn to the ground. I have sprinkler system, all this and that. But I've had a heart attack. I was fortunate that I didn't need anybody to come and help me, but that entity would be the fire district. So can you elaborate a bit, because you've been in this, you know, is there a proportion that needs to be taken into consideration, not just the imminent fire danger, but just the health and safety of the populace?
Okay, couple things. You had a lot of things there.
Yes, I did.
Let me see if I can answer the first main question you said. Why not stop building? Okay. As I pointed out, we are putting mechanisms, let me make this go away. We are putting mechanisms in place so that that new development will pay for and staff stations 7, 8, and 9.
Right.
If we build stations 7, 8, and 9, and we have station 1, 2, and 3, we will all be better off. Okay. Because now we'll have 6 stations serving an area that needs 9 in 2040, but as we go through it, those 3 additional stations will benefit the existing population, okay? It won't benefit it and solve the problem of not having the 3 that we've got, but it will keep the situation from getting worse, okay? So growth is not bad. Well, there's some people that think growth is bad, but relative to the fire system, new growth is not bad if it pays its own way, okay? So yes, there should be no new growth that doesn't pay its own way. But if it pays its own way, it actually will help those of us that are here a little bit. So new growth that pays its own way is good.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
It's
So that's the answer to the question, why not just go out and stop it?
Okay. No, and and again, when it comes to new development and everything you just said, that's great. I'm talking more of, and we know who they are. And I'm not trying to get into a mudslinging contest. I just go with existing developers, new developers,
Yeah.
fill in the blank. That there are, they're sitting high and mighty because they know that right now, with the existing laws, that they don't have to do anything. And if you're looking for, people to volunteer giving up money. Now, was that one of the developers?
No.
No problem. But my point is, if we told, this is the analogy I use, and I'll say it really quickly. Brentwood is our house. We are the parents, the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
We have the developer kids who come in our house. We have the kids that live in our house, our civic leaders. Our house is a mess. And we've tried come on, Jimmy, come on, Sally, you got to do your part and clean, clean, clean. Whereas my suggestion is more along the lines of, kids, no one plays with any toys, developer money, until the house is clean, period, done. New developer kids, old developer kids, new existing kids that, live with us, and kids that may be moving in. That maybe I'm thinking too simply, and I'm not trying to put the onus on you. It's more about, could we consider that? Because I think that's the only way we're going to get the kids to play along and clean the house.
Well, who are the kids? The kids are not the developers.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Because the developers have already said, and the city has already said, we will pay our share.
Those are the new developer kids that came in the house. I'm talking about the developer kids that have been sleeping on the sofa for 15 years.
Okay, well,
I'm not talking about the new kids.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Okay,
but really quick, let me just.
I'm going to answer it for you.
The developer kid has been sleeping on the couch for 15 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Has been playing with the toys. And, the new kids come in, they understand, they're walking in with a mop and a broom. You can't play with any of these toys until you clean up part of this house. Okay. I'm talking about the developer kid that's been sleeping on the couch for 15 years. Okay. Who's sitting there saying, I don't have to do anything. I've been here.
That's exactly right, I think. Let me see if I can say it back to you and see if it is. When a developer goes to build a house, he has to pay, new developers have to pay an impact fee to help pay for the fire station that's going to be needed to serve that house. And they have to agree to put a fire tax on that house that the owner of the house will have to pay for the firemen in the house. Okay. So when my house was built, the city of Brentwood had some impact fee because they have some money to build a station, but wasn't enough, but they had something. And there was no impact, there was no fire tax put on my property that I was required to pay. So now like I say, we need 3 more stations right now. We got one built. We got another one that's almost, we got the money for it. And then the last one, we don't quite have the money for that identified right now. But the sort of the station side of it is not the biggest part of the problem. The biggest part of the problem is the firefighters in the station. Okay. So that quote, developer resident, the person like me that's sitting on the couch, taking it easy and didn't have to pay, the developer didn't agree to put, the city didn't ask and the developer didn't agree to put a tax on my house for me to help the fire department. Now, as the fire department, I'm going to come out to you and me and say, guys, we would like you to pay the tax you should have been paying all along. Okay. And that's where the education comes in. We have to help people see the benefit in that. We have to help them say, yes, now I understand that tax should have been paid, but it wasn't. I agree to pay it, and I'm going to get 3 fire stations for it. So that's where we're at. And it's education, I think, and we're working on that in a hard way. But
and I appreciate it. I mean, I am so much smarter from just this dialogue, and I truly appreciate it. Let me jump off that high horse of mine. And the last question, yesterday found out the city's trying to sell property. That's the city.
Which city? We talking
Our city.
Brentwood, okay, they have some surplus property.
Yeah, there were 6 plots of, I want to say 6 of them, I think it was more, and they were designated, and they had all this one's 3/4 of an acre, this one is 2.6, whatever. I'm not a big fan, and I made that point known last night, of selling the land. However, now I'm thinking, all right, well, how about if we're going to sell the land, we put all that money into fire service? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, it would be one-time money. Sold the land, you got a piece of money. So it isn't suitable for paying firefighters.
No, understood. I'm sorry for interrupting.
It might be suitable for helping to build that station number 6.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So that might be a reasonable use for it. And the city could decide to do that. In fact, on Station 5, we're talking with them right now. They've got about $7 million to go through that towards that. And we need another couple $1 million. And we're talking about maybe doing a loan or something like that, working it out. But there's money coming, and Brentwood's been pretty good about working with us on it. So I think we will be able to work a deal with Brentwood to see, of the 3 stations we need right now, 2 of them are in Brentwood.
Okay.
So
okay. Now, and maybe again, this is me thinking too simplistic. It's after 11 o'clock and I haven't had my coffee yet, so
yeah.
please pardon my stuttering and stammering. I understand that it's a one-time. You can only sell the property once. I get that. I'm going back to the $4 million a year to maintain fire services. So if we're looking at 7 plots of land and they sell for, let's say, $1.5 million. Well, let's say 2, because then I can do the math easy.
Yeah,
that's $14 million. Yeah, so $14 million, if we built one firehouse without generating any more revenue, can maintain that firehouse for 3 years. Now, like I said, I'm not a big fan of them selling the property, because more than likely it will be more houses or light industrial, fill in the blank. But if we're going to sell the property anyway, then the question becomes, and again, outside your wheelhouse, this is more for the people who are watching this saying, hey, why can't they do this? that would at least, like a kickstart, like a seed money type of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, again, what I would say is that that is really one-time money. Let me tell you the scenario that happens.
Okay.
So say we go out with that money and say, okay, we're going to use it to open another fire station, staff a fire station. And we go out and we hire the 9 firefighters. And we can hire them. That's no problem. We'll be able to hire them, okay? And it costs, by the time we've hired a firefighter and he's broken in, it takes, 12 to 24 months before he's fully doing everything we need him to do,
Mhm.
okay? And he's learning how to do it and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, a job over here opens up, and that job's got repeating money. Says we can guarantee you your job. We got the money to fund your job as long as you're here. And the guy is sitting here and he's saying, I only got 18 months left of funding on this station. I'm going to take that job. And he goes over there, and so all of a sudden we're short a firefighter. So now we go and spend the money in 2 years to try and hire another firefighter. And while you're doing that, the other 8 that haven't left yet, they leave. We know that because that's what's happened to us every time we have tried to staff stations with one-time money, is we hire them. There's a lot of people that would like to be firefighters because it's a good job, it pays well, not quite as well in our area as it does in some others. Ours are paid the lowest of the county. It has a good healthcare package with it, and it has a good pension program with it. People like to be firefighters, but where are they going to go? They're going to go where they can get the best deal and they got guaranteed that they're going to have a job. If we come in here and say, hey, we're going to hire you, but by the way, I can't guarantee this job's going to last forever. They'll take the job. Why? Because they'll get trained. They'll become fledged. They'll be good and competitive when that permanent job opens up somewhere else.
Right.
So we know that happened. We lost 40 firefighters in a short period of time when we were going through the 2008 and we got the grant to open the firefighter stations. We know what happens. It does. So when you hire somebody, you got to be able to say your job. I mean, as long as you do the job, we're going to fire somebody if they're incompetent or don't do it. But we got to be able to say, this is a permanent position and you're going to be in it. Okay. We can't say, oh, it's a temporary position. We got you funded for 3 years. Well,
Right.
they'll take that job. And 18 months, 2 years down the road, another job opens up, they'll take that one too.
No, understood. But isn't that, as an engineer and with the companies you've worked for, isn't that a scenario that can be played out anywhere? So this is more of a question you don't have to answer, but uh, you know, I've done a whole lot of things in my life. I was a contract, temporary employee. I was full time the whole shooting match. Um, but there have been some that come into a role specifically to be trained to go somewhere else. And it could be a full-time gig. It could be, hey, we're gonna throw this money at you, and they'll say, oh, well, that's lovely, appreciate it. But then if a better gig comes on down the road, you're in the same circumstance. And so I honestly, this is just Danny Dorman thinking, is if we have, even if it's, a temporary thing, let's say we have enough money to last 4 years with everything, I mean, not home, but the firehouse, firefighters, equipment. I would think that year 3.5, when it looks like the money's going to run out, that the voters would be more inclined to maintain than to build out now. And that's, that's just historically what I'm thinking as a businessman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. Generally, we've talked with the city of Brentwood in the past, and the number that we have in our mind is if you want to go into some kind of a funding arrangement, you need to be able to say it's going to be there for 5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
To that extent, we can accommodate that type of a process. You know, maybe 4 years is enough. I don't know, but we've worked on this before and we said 5 years. So
Sure.
something like that could happen, and that's what's going to happen. Let's say Measure X passes, you know, and the county comes to us and says, okay, and we hope they come to us because they bragged about how they were going to help fire service with Measure X money.
Right.
Oh, by the way, if you read the actual ballot measure, not the ballot description, the word fire is not in it. Okay. Yeah, the word that's in it is general fund, anything we want to spend it on.
There it is.
So if they come to us and say, hey, we've got some money, I'm going to say, that sounds great. Let's enter into a contract that says you're going to give us, and in fact, when our resolution came up in the fire district they were asking us to support it, I had the resolution reworded to say that we'll support this with the understanding that you are going to dedicate a fixed percentage of that money that will be significant relative to our problem in an expeditious manner. Okay, so I'm hoping that if it passes, and maybe I'm a fool for trusting them, I don't know, that they're going to come to us and say, we're going to contract with you to provide that 5% or 10% or 15% of this money, and those numbers come from 5% is sort of one station and 10% is sort of two. We're going to contact with you for the 20 years to make sure that you get that percentage of the money. And I'm going to say, that's great. We will take it, and we're going to start hiring for that fire station right away. Okay.
All right. No, let me tell you, when it comes to trust, and see, I'm more of a distinguished, a separation between faith and trust. I have faith that if it passes, that they'll do everything that you suggested. I don't trust that they will. But if it doesn't pass, and I'm not promoting or condoning this measure, but if it does not pass, then we're in the same boat, not having any money. If it does pass, at least we have a chance to complain about not having the money.
Yeah.
So, but with that in mind, sir, are there any parting words? This has been fantastic. Boy, this has been fantastic. I really do appreciate your time. Is there anything you'd like to say as we close this thing?
Well, what I'd like to say is that I've been working diligently. I think we are on the way to a solution. We are on the verge of addressing and handling the new growth problem. The existing problem, we as residents of the area that have the problem are unfortunately going to have to pay a large part of fixing it. Be it from Brentwood selling something and not using that money for something the city needs, using it with us, or us passing that fire tax, whatever it is. In the end, it's going to come from us one way or another. Okay. And so I just want people to understand that and be ready to stand up. I mean, you made the point before. If you live in Bethel Island right now, you're lucky if you can get fire insurance. And if you get it, it's going to cost you $5,000 a year. If we had that $200 or $300 or $400 fire tax a year, you'd be able to get that insurance for $2,000 a year. Okay.
And that's a very good point. And
that's a good buy in my mind. Pay the fire district $300 or $400 to take $5,000 off my insurance bill.
Right. No, and maybe that's something homeowners all over this fire district to consider.
Yep.
My wife handles the taxes, so I really know the insurance. But I'm sure it would be a whole lot more expensive if I was out in Bethel Island as opposed to here.
It would be, and it's going to get more expensive here as the insurance companies begin to realize that we only have one station in Brentwood. Because the last time they checked on us, we had 3.
Oh, okay. Well, then,
Yeah.
all right, citizens of Brentwood, do not tell State Farm. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep it on the DL, as they say.
Yeah.
Oh, well, sir, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. This is the one time I didn't say when you win, because I've said that to all the candidates, because I gotta be right. So when you win, I look forward to working with you in any way, shape, form that I can help. I love this town. I've been here 17 years. This is my last house. I hope it's not my last house because it gets burned to the ground.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So with that in mind, thank you very much, sir.
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to stop the recording right